Everybody, this is Perch. I've always tried to be as honest as possible. I mean, sometimes I say things as I'm saying them. I'm like, oh man, people are going to misinterpret this. But I'm just trying to give you the most kind of unfiltered view of what I have, and the chips will fall where they may. If people want to cause an issue, or I say something stupid, I'll apologize. Or if everybody's just trying to make drama, then I'll ignore it. It'll happen at some point. I fully expect people to take things out of context. It is what it is. But fortunately, this topic I think is non-controversial. Every time I say that, something crazy happens. But comic shops. We've talked a lot about them. I have a long history at this point of running a comic shop, different venues, different areas, and I think that the rubber is meeting the road to some extent with shops. I think the pandemic accelerated some things that were naturally happening anyway, but a lot of kind of the stalling and the dragging of the feet around modernization came to a head. This idea that, hey, maybe your shop is can't always be open. Maybe you're going to be told you can't be open, and so you better have a plan. It hit home for a lot of retailers that I think historically had kind of wanted to ignore that fact. I've had lots of conversations on different shows, certainly, but also in real life, plenty at cons, with many other retailers. Like the fun part is like an old record store. People can come in. There are boxes. There's the smell of those boxes. They're thumbing through back issues, and that's part of the whole experience of comics. And to that, I would say, yeah, that is part of the experience. I think in the future, the world will need less of those. What I mean by that is, I think comic shops start to merge, and you just get centers of excellence around back issue stock. But you don't need, like, if you're in Atlanta, you don't need 12 comic shops doing that. You need maybe three. And bear in mind, I'm saying this from a market perspective. As a customer, as somebody who enjoys flipping through comics, hell, 12. What are we talking about? We need 50. I'd like one, I'd like as many. I'd like the Starbucks of comic shops, where like every corner, you can't, if you look out the window of one comic shop, you see another comic shop. That would be great. But, the market can't support that. So I think you get some merging. But then I think the secondary comic shop arrives, and that's the one that really specializes in, having a great business when it's not open. And that may sound like, wait, what do you mean? I mean, having a good online web presence, having the ability to ship and find what people want, having the ability to, utilize the mail, maybe leverage Amazon, all these kinds of pieces. I think that that's a necessary component. I think you kind of have to be one or the other, in the future. Either you have to have a really great in-shop experience, where somebody can come in and they're immersed in pop culture and comics, and they get that experience of flipping through boxes, and they get some friendly people they can chat with, and they, that's a good time. Or they get really adept at utilizing mail that they've got between online and the postal service, not the band. They are able to conduct their business with a showroom in effect and a heavy online business. I was reading this article, which is kind of crazy to me, of one of the ways that Best Buy is trying to reinvent itself is that their online sales, the people who are going on to bestbuy.com and either ordering things through the mail or ordering things for store pickup, finally crossed and converged with people just walking into the store and buying something. And you may say, well, this is no big surprise. But I guess the intelligent part of it is Best Buy looks at this and says, not, crap, how do we get more people into shops? Let's open more shops, or let's close our shops. Instead, they are embarking in a 2 to 3 year journey of turning their shops into a showroom, basically trying to make it so that the people coming into their shop, coming into a Best Buy, are able to quickly see and compare products, but their primary purpose is to display and to pick up orders, as opposed to people coming in and just browsing. And if you go into a Best Buy, by the way, you'll see this transformation starting to take place. It's a little bit weird. That's how retail is going to survive. I think that you're going to see these two comic shops really arise. You're going to see back issue specialists and places that have that kind of comic book experience, and you're going to see, for lack of a better word, showrooms. You're going to see places that the primary part of their business is all going to be online, and then they're going to have some more casual front end experience. Both of these are going to be tough for a lot of comic shops to adapt to, and there's going to be some lingering shops out there that they have a core audience. Their core audience keeps them afloat, and they just keep serving that core audience, and that's fine. In fact, one might argue, I would probably argue this, that a lot of the comic shops that exist today are already kind of in that camp, meaning they have if they really, really sat down and looked at their books, what they would find is that they are servicing a group of regulars that pay for rent, pay for salaries, pay for kind of the operation of the store, and that's 90% of their money. Their money is coming from regulars. So they live in some terror of their regulars going away. I mean, you could take that argument further and say that's a big reason why the whole variant cover incentive program continues to work. And I'm using that word loosely in air quotes. It's working because the regulars are looking for variants, and that's the shop has figured out how to just build that into their model, and that's what you've got. I visit a number of shops in the Puget Sound region as I'm getting ready to reopen, and what's amazing to me is they all have a very distinct clientele that they know. And on one hand, that's great, but on the other hand, it's slightly alarming that they really steer to manage their existing clientele as opposed to grow it. Very few people in comics, if I go to Facebook groups and other places, very few people are talking about growth. And by the way, that's not just the comic shops. The publishers aren't either. Sorry, that's not fair. The publishers talk about growth all the time. It's just kind of confusing what their strategy is when they talk about growing. Like, we need to grow the market. Cool. How are you going to do that? I will get back to you. Okay. The comic shops are really not talking about growth at all. Of course, everybody hopes that people will just kind of magically wander in. But if you go to your local comic shop and you say to the owner, it's like, hey, so these Marvel movies, did that bring in a lot of new customers? 99 times out of 100, the answer is no. And that's not necessarily bad, but I've probed the extra question and say, hey, how would we go get those customers? The movie came out, nobody came in. How should we go get them? How should we go find them? And the answer is like, this is the one that bothers me. People go to the movies, won't buy comics. It's kind of his default answer. That's a scary answer. If you're a retailer, that's a kind of a terrifying admission. That should not be the case. I think every retailer should be like, we're going to set up something at the movie theater. We're going to try and capture them when they come out the door. Going to, hook them in some kind of Craven the Hunter style net and drag them back into the store and not release them until they pay a ransom. So I'm fantasizing here, but you get the idea. It's weird to me to see retailers write off potentially that growth audience, and taking it even further. If the comic publishers are saying, hey, we want to go chase this new audience, but they don't really have a plan, and nothing so far has really indicated to me that there is a clear plan for that. And the comic shop is basically saying, there's no new audience we can get. That doesn't exist. Then the publisher is putting out random go nowhere efforts, and the retailer is giving up before it even began. That's definitely a recipe of no growth, which means comic shops are vectoring toward their regulars. And that sounds great, but that's also bluntly one of the reasons why comic shops comics keep going up in price, because every company is on a path to try and figure out growth. And if you have no growth in customers, the way you're going to grow is by, you guessed it, charging more money for comics. So I think this is a given, but I don't know if it's ever been stated this clearly before, is, at least not on this channel, the reason why comics are getting more expensive, don't you? It's because comics aren't growing. The audience isn't growing. If Marvel was growing their audience, meaning more people are coming into Marvel and buying more Marvel comics, the price would stay the same. It might even go down. The fact that it's going up is a side effect of the fact that new people aren't coming in. And that over time is obviously a pretty big problem. Anyway, just some thoughts about comic shops. Like I said, I don't think this plays out immediately, but I think we're really going to vector to, one or the other happening. And I think that what you'll see squeezed in the middle are these shops that have a regular audience, but that's just going to kind of dwindle over time. I still, despite everything I just said, I think owning, running, having a comic shop is a worthwhile endeavor. I think it's a good idea. I think it's fun. I think the experience inside a comic store is amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But the world does evolve, and you evolve with it, or you die. And I think it's in the best interest for all the comic shops to start coming together and start having these conversations because, again, I go to places like Comics Pro, or I go to, I'll go to the retailer summits at conventions. There's a meetup in a couple days here of a bunch of retailers down in the Southwest and central part of America. And, we're talking about ideas. And what always astounds me is that the retailers continue in 2021 to say things like, well, we're waiting to get word from the publishers, or we're waiting to hear what the publisher has in mind. We're waiting to see what DC is going to do, or waiting to see what Marvel's going to do. And I mean, I've said this before, so I'll probably dox myself in saying this. I'll say it again. We can't wait for the publishers. The publishers are not coming with the answer. They haven't for a long time now. The last time we really got strong answers from the publisher was DC used to do at least some efforts back in the 2004 kind of time frame. They're not doing it now. So nobody is. So if you're sitting there and you're kind of expecting the publisher to come with a solution, it's not coming. It definitely is not coming. So let's stop waiting on that, and we're gonna have to make our own answers here, folks, because that's we're gonna die waiting. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and your questions below. As always, like and subscribe. Maybe make sure you're still subscribed. A lot of people aren't, for I don't know why. And thanks for listening.